The Spotlight, shining a light on podcasts and videos that have caught our attention.
Hi and welcome to The Spotlight. My name is Jen Spiker and today I'll be highlighting a video from Creation Ministries International. What if there is evidence that dinosaur fossils are much younger than the millions of years popularly claimed, and that these fascinating creatures shared the Earth with humans? This would upset the entire evolutionary understanding of the fossil record. Dr. Don Batten says it would be perfectly consistent with the biblical account of history.
The Spotlight with Jen Spiker.
They say that dinosaurs died out 66 million years ago when a meteorite hit the Yucatan Peninsula. But you actually say that that's not true. Can you walk me through that?
Well, there's three lines of evidence why I don't believe that's true. First of all, there's scientific evidence, which is the soft tissues and proteins that are found in dinosaur remains, and that indicates that those dinosaur fossils are not millions of years old. That's number one.
Soft tissue, okay.
Soft tissue. The second is the historical evidence that people have seen these creatures in the last 500 years, 1,000 years, 2,000 years, and that's in the form of art that's actually found all around the world. But before 1841, they wouldn't have called them dinosaurs because that's when the word was invented, and I believe they call them dragons in English. And there's words in Chinese and other languages. And so before 1841, they were called dragons. Not all dragons are dinosaurs, but many of them clearly are. And the third line of evidence is the historical evidence from the Bible, which indicates that dinosaurs were not created a long time before mankind, but in fact on the same day of Creation Week, which is the sixth day of Creation Week.
So, Don, if we look at those three evidences in a little bit more detail, the first one being this idea of soft tissue that we're finding in dinosaur fossils. How can that be the case if they're supposed to be 66 million years old?
That's a fundamental problem for the millions of years story, because proteins and things don't last for millions of years, even under the most ideal conditions. So it's such a problem for the evolutionary story, the millions of years story, that when the first material was published scientifically on the soft tissue and dinosaur bones, the evolutionary establishment came out all guns blazing, trying to shoot it down, claiming that the blood vessels that were found were actually biofilm created by a bacteria that had invaded the bones in recent times. So the fossils have been invaded by bacteria, and the bacteria produced this film which created this stuff that looked like blood vessels, stretchy, soft blood vessels.
Okay, so looked like blood vessels, but wasn't actually.
That was the claim. That was because they recognised that this is a huge problem for their millions of years story, was that these blood vessels would not last soft and stretchy for over 68 million years sort of thing. So Dr. Mary Schweitzer, who was responsible for this original research, then went on to show that this soft material had proteins in it that could only come from a vertebrate, not from bacteria. So bacteria don't produce collagen, for example, which is a protein that's present in vertebrates, animals with backbones, with a skeleton. But she found collagen and other proteins like hemoglobin, for example. Again, bacteria don't produce hemoglobin. So this then became an even bigger problem for the millions of years story, because their story about biofilms didn't work. So they're looking for an out to try and, explain how they can be millions of years old and still have these biomaterials, this proteins and things still in them. Now, the interesting, you can do lab experiments with collagen and other proteins, and you can do it at different temperatures, and then you can track how quickly the material breaks down. And you find out that even under ideal conditions with, say, at 10 degrees Celsius, which is sort of a temperature you would expect in the rocks, the fossils are found in, collagen protein, for example, won't last even 1 million years at 10 degrees Celsius. And this is end up with nothing connected. So the proteins are made of amino acids, and it would take just 1 million years for none of them to be connected. In other words, completely broken down. So in other words, this discovery is a big problem for the belief that they're millions of years old.
And are they still trying to, if the biofilm idea hasn't worked, is there any other ideas that they're coming up with to try and shoot it down?
Yeah, they've tried to shoot it down, tried to work out how possibly these things could be preserved. And one idea was that iron from hemoglobin, so the blood of the dinosaurs, the iron sort of precipitated out of something, and the iron preserved the proteins.
Okay.
But you would expect that, therefore, the best preservation would be where the blood vessels are, but in fact you don't find that. And also the lab experiments only looked at 1 or 2 years. And, of course, if blood preserves things, you'd think the blood bank would be interested in that.
I was just thinking that. Okay. It doesn't quite work.
But blood breaks down and it doesn't preserve things. Another idea was they called it the toast idea. So, you know, when you cook your toast for breakfast, and that toast will last longer than if you've got a piece of bread. So you put a piece of bread out in the weather, it won't last very long, assuming to cover it up so the birds don't eat it. But if you toast it, it'll last longer. So the idea is there's some sort of toasting process went on chemically in the dinosaur bones, which helped preserve the proteins. But again...
Okay. Toasting from what?
Well... the
burial process.
The burial
somehow.
process and chemicals that flowed through the bones and that sort of thing. And so it's a very hypothetical concept again. But they're grasping at straws here because even if you toast your bread, it doesn't last for millions of years.
Yeah.
So it just goes to show what a problem this soft tissue and proteins are in these fossils. And it's not just dinosaur fossils either. There's ichthyosaur, 180 million years old, and there's other things from 200 million years old and even older, from hundreds of millions of years supposedly in the evolutionary scheme of dating things, intact proteins, intact bacteria that actually revived when they were recovered from supposedly 250 million years ago, for example. This is inconceivable if these things are really that old.
If bacteria can revive, then surely it hasn't been buried and gone for that long.
That's exactly right, yeah. So there's a fundamental problem with their whole millions of years deep time story, but they have to hang on to it because, well, time is a magic pudding that, creates everything, isn't it?
And these discoveries, they keep being made, don't they? We keep digging up bones. We keep finding more and more of these soft tissues in all sorts of fossils.
Yeah, one of the things that Dr. Mary Schweitzer's work has done is just opened the whole door to the possibility that all sorts of fossils could have proteins and things in them, and even DNA. Even DNA has been found, fragments of DNA have been found in dinosaur bones. That's even more volatile and would decay more quickly. than proteins. So this is a huge problem for their deep time story.
That's the first part. And then you said if we had a look at dinosaurs, actually, if they're not that old, then they've lived alongside human beings at some point.
Well, that's certainly indicated by art that you find all around the world.
Tell us about that.
Well, just a couple of examples. In Ta Prohm Temple in Cambodia, and I've actually visited this.
Oh, wow.
And seen it for myself, but there's a carving on the wall of this temple which is hundreds of years old, predating any modern paleontology studies that could have inspired it, of a creature which has features which are reminiscent of the Stegosaurus, with the plates along the back and so on.
Yeah.
And it's hard to see how it's not some sort of dinosaur-like creature. Other ones, like Bishop Bell was buried in 1496 in Carlisle Cathedral in the United Kingdom, up in the northeast of England. And Dr. Mark Harwood, one of my colleagues, actually seen this himself as well. And a brass relief around the tomb in the floor of the cathedral, all sorts of animals are etched into the brass. Things like pigs and dogs and fish and things.
Okay, animals that are alive today.
Animals which we recognise as real animals today, but also there are two animals necking with long necks and long tails and four reasonably equally sized legs. The only animal we know that could be that is the sauropod dinosaur. a type of sauropod. And one of them, interestingly, has spikes on its tail. Now, I don't think you could name a sauropod dinosaur with spikes on its tail, or some of your kids in school might be able to name them, but there's one called Dinosaurs.
Oh, I haven't heard of that one.
Yeah, you haven't heard of it. See, but actually known from fossils, which has got spikes on its tail, and one of the long-necked, long-tailed sauropod dinosaurs. So
how would they have known?
Well, exactly.
Could you say that they just thought it up in their imagination?
Well, this is 1496, you see, and so, there was no paleontology going on to study dinosaur fossils and things. Another one is in Mesopotamia, before Christ, there was a cylinder seal found. Now, a seal was used to roll into wax to produce a seal on the emperor's documents or court, imperial documents, so that by pain of death if you go breaking the seal. And this seal, when you roll it into the wax, produces an image of a creature which we know today from fossil studies as Tanistropheus. Now, there's a book by the name of Dire Dragons by a Canadian guy by the name of Vance Nelson, and Vance has travelled the world collecting art that shows that dinosaurs and people live together.
Wow,
and Dire Dragons was the name of the book. It's a wonderful collection, and he's been very careful to make sure that the art is genuinely of the era, not some modern sort of copy, So, or forgery, if you like. So this is powerful evidence that people and dinosaurs will live together. So Fred Flintstone cartoons are not far off the mark.
Which doesn't always help because, often if you have a chat with the average person, they're going to say, there's no way that they lived at the same time. That's just movies and TV shows.
Well, they've been so indoctrinated in the idea that dinosaurs died out tens of millions of years before people came on the scene. And, of course, they get it through those movies, Jurassic Park, Jurassic World, and so on. But also they get it at the museum. My wife and I went to the Queensland Museum yesterday to look at the dinosaur exhibit. And what's the story all the way through is millions of years indoctrinating all the young people, the kids there are there for their school holidays watching and looking at these displays. And some magnificent displays of the fossils and the creatures, but what's the story that's wrapped into it? Is the story a fact? No, I don't believe it is. The fossils are a fact, but not the story that goes with it.
And we know that stories are powerful, I think, particularly for young ones.
Yeah.
It's sometimes how we learn. So I think if we've got a story that sounds convincing and it's the one that's presented in the museums.
Well, if you hear nothing else, that's what you tend to believe. Yeah. So people find it a bit, incredible that they could have lived together.
Yeah.
But that's what the evidence is telling us, that the millions of years story is a myth.
This is The Spotlight, and we've been hearing Dr. Don Batten in the first part of a long-form interview produced by Creation Ministries International, called 3 Reasons Dinosaurs Can't Be Old. Dr. Don says there's much more evidence of dinosaurs being seen by people in the book Dire Dragons. I'm Jen Spiker, and next time on The Spotlight, we'll hear more evidence that dinosaurs can't be old from Dr. Don Batten. If you can't wait and want to watch the interview in full, you can do that right now in the Free Vision app. Just tap the Watch tab and scroll to the Creation Ministries International channel for this and other fascinating interviews.
For more great podcasts and videos like the one featured today, check out vision.org.au or the Free Vision app.